Hello, welcome to today's lesson. We are going to focus on cellular respiration. So to put this into perspective, we're on edXL, we're paper 2, and we are at the end of the exchange and transport topic. So we've been looking at the lungs, where gas exchange takes place. We've been looking at the circulatory system, which carries everything around the body. And now we're going to focus on one of the most important chemical reactions in our body that relies on the circulatory and the gas exchange system. So today we're going to be able to compare aerobic and anaerobic respiration, and you are going to, from now on, always know that cellular respiration is a chemical reaction that happens in cells, and it has nothing to do directly with breathing in and out. Okay, so why do athletes use sports gels? If we're watching Mo Farah running in a marathon, you'll see that along the way he often takes in some sports gels. And you're absolutely right. They are to get a very quick supply of chemical energy so that can be converted into movement energy. Okay, so the glucose is a very high source of energy, and that is really, really important. Okay, so when we hear the word respiration, from now on, we're going to think energy release. And this chemical reaction happens in both plant and animal cells. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking it only happens in animals. Okay, so aerobic respiration, the light bulb that goes off in your head is lots of oxygen, whereas anaerobic respiration is when there is little or no oxygen. So, for example, Mo Farah at the end of the race, he is not getting enough oxygen for the demand that he is putting on his muscles. Now, where does aerobic respiration take place? Now, it happens inside a cell, so maybe a cell inside Mo Farah's thigh. And the part of the cell or the organelle is known as the mitochondria. Think of the mighty mitochondria, the powerhouse, and power stations gives us the source of energy. So this is going to release energy. So the location is the mitochondria of a cell. And that's what the mitochondria looks like. It's got that double membrane with the inner membrane folded to increase the surface area. And I said this is a chemical reaction, and you have to know this off by heart. And in fact, in chemistry, you do the exact same reaction for combustion, except this time our fuel is glucose. It reacts with oxygen, and it produces carbon dioxide and water. And as a result, energy is released. Now, I'm saying released because as an examiner, if students write it is produced, they lose their mark because they've forgotten that it was there all the time. It was trapped as chemical energy in the glucose molecule. It's just being released into a different form. So where does the glucose come from? Well, when I have my Rice Krispies, it gets absorbed into my blood through the walls of the small intestine, and that gets transported around the body to my cells. Where does the oxygen come from? Absolutely, it comes from the lungs, so it goes into the alveoli where it diffuses into the bloodstream. It then gets pumped to the heart, or it travels to the heart, which then pumps it around the body to the cell in your thigh. Okay. And as a result, carbon dioxide and water are produced. Right, so I just want to emphasize this. Chemical energy in the glucose molecule is released in the form of energy, and it's packaged in a molecule that in A-level biology we call ATP, adenine triphosphate. You don't need to know that, but you might hear the word ATP come up. It's basically a package of energy. So why do we need respiration? For movement. As mammals, we need to keep our temperature at 37 degrees Celsius. You know how hard it is to keep a fire burning. It takes a lot of energy. And of course, all living processes require respiration, require energy. So this is so vital. But what happens when we don't quite have enough oxygen, or in fact, we're not getting enough oxygen to our cells in time? That's when we go into anaerobic respiration. So anaerobic respiration doesn't occur in the mitochondria of the cell, but in the cytoplasm of the cell. And in animals, the chemical reaction is the glucose gets broken down and turned into lactic acid, and some energy is released. So not as much as aerobic respiration, but there is still energy released, which is important. And that lactic acid is what makes your muscles feel so stiff after you've been exercising if you haven't done it for a while. Now that lactic acid, the way we get rid of that stiffness is to go back and exercise even though we're feeling sore, because that gets more oxygen to that area, which helps break down the lactic acid. But when we finish exercising, if I finished an aerobic session, what will happen is immediately after, my heartbeat doesn't go down and I don't suddenly start at my breathing rate as it was before I started exercising. And that's because a while after exercising, my body is still trying to get enough oxygen to restore the pre-exercise levels. And that's called EPOC. EPOC refers to the increased need for oxygen after exercise to restore the body, and it stands for excess post-oxygen consumption. Now in plants, we also get anaerobic respiration, but this time we can call it fermentation as well. And rather than getting lactic acid, we get ethanol, which is a type of alcohol. Now that's great if you want to have some wine or beer. Fermentation is vital for that process, or catalyzed by adding a little bit of yeast. So when I make bread, the glucose gets turned into ethanol, which is why I get that alcohol type smell while the bread is baking. And the carbon dioxide helps the bread to rise. And the process kills the fungi, the yeast that I add to the bread to catalyze this reaction. And that, ladies and gentlemen, in a nutshell, is respiration. So just this page, if you had this in your head, you would do brilliantly. So perhaps one revision card. Describe aerobic and anaerobic respiration in detail. Can you remember these points? Fantastic job. Keep working hard. Remember, the more you practice, the better you get. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos. Take care. God bless.